Hi, everyone. So the question of the hour, I should say the $6 million question is, when is the best time to post on LinkedIn, especially in 2021? When we think about how we should approach our LinkedIn strategies, even going into 2022, what should we be thinking about when we start sharing content on LinkedIn to get the most visibility, to get the most engagement, and then clearly to get the most conversions? So if you don't already know who I am, welcome so much. My name is Deborrah Ashley, the LinkedIn Black Belt, and I help my clients leverage LinkedIn. And I always say market smarter on LinkedIn so they can get the best return on their investment, on their time. And for some, that looks like increased revenue. For others, that looks like increased opportunities. And for some other people, it's simple visibility and brand awareness, right? So when you come into the room, whether you are live with us or you're on the replay, I want you to share with me who you are and even where you're from, but specifically what you do for your client, because this is going to be relevant for you. So when we think about how to post or maximize the way that we put out our content on LinkedIn so we can get the best return for the buck, there are specific things that I always share that we should be looking at. However, I'm not going to cover that right now. What I'm going to do is I'm going to share some data from different brands who have done research on that. And I'm going to share from their standpoint, because I used to think the same way too, from their standpoint, when's the best time to post on LinkedIn, right? So we're going to go through 4 different brands who typically have the data and the research, and they spend, I'm sure, hundreds of thousands to do this research, but they're typically the go-to when you think about research. So the first brand, we're talking Hubspot, right? So Hubspot says the best time to post on LinkedIn to get the results, the revenue, the visibility, all the things that you're looking to get would be Wednesday between 10 to 12. So it's about 12 o'clock Eastern now. There's never any discussion around time zones, right? I'm Eastern Standard Time. It's 12 o'clock now. So that's Hubspot, Wednesday between 10 and 12. Then we think about Sprout Social. So Sprout Social also says Wednesdays, but they say between 8 a.m. and 10 a.m. and then at 12. So keep in mind, for those who are just watching at a later date, we went live at 12 o'clock. I'm going to be doing something really exciting with the data that we're chatting about now, we're talking about now, okay? So with Sprout Social, they also mention, and there's something about Wednesdays. I always think Tuesdays and Wednesdays are the best, but Sprout Social also says Thursday at 9 a.m. If anyone can guess, if you want to guess in the chat, why 9 a.m.? Why would that be 9 a.m.? So Thursdays at 9 a.m. in between 1 to 2, and then Fridays at 9 a.m. Interesting, right? Friday mornings. So then we have Buffer. Everyone knows about Buffer. For some people, they actually use that to schedule their content out so they don't have to post manually. So then we have Buffer. They say Tuesdays, Wednesdays, and Thursdays between 7 a.m. Now we're getting even more earlier, 7 a.m. to 8:30, and then from 5 to 6 p.m. So we have early, not that early in the morning, but in the mornings. And then when we think about it, a little bit after work or right before you leave work. So then we have a company called The Balance, SMB. They say between 7 and 8 a.m., no specific day though, and 5 to 6 p.m. So what I'm going to do, and I want you guys to join me when I'm going to do this experiment, right? I want you to do this with me or just watch as I do it. You can always watch as I do it and comment and come back. What I'm going to do is I'm going to test all of these theories, because I have a different theory when we think about it, but I'm going to test all of these theories. And then we're going to do it for 30 days, because when we're measuring data, we always want to give it a little bit of time because circumstances change. So we're going to measure, I'm going to go live on Wednesdays and Thursdays at these different times. And we're going to test over a 30-day period of time. Well, not 30 days, but over a 1-month period of time, what that data looks like. And here's why I'm doing this. So when I think about, anytime I do this, it means I'm thinking, right? When I think about how to think about when you're going to share content on LinkedIn, for me, it's not necessarily the specific time of day for everyone. It's unfortunate because there's not a lot of us who, some people they do B2B. Some people do direct to consumer, D2C. Some people do B2C, right? Some people are maybe, they market to software brands. So we have to think about it. What works better? A specific day and time, or thinking about what the customer needs and when they're going to be on? If you can go ahead and share in the comments, what do you think works better? A specific day and time that works for everyone, or a specific day and time that may work best for your customer base? Go ahead and share that in the comments. I already know the answer, but I might be surprised. So from my perspective, I always say, let's think about who you are as a company, who you sell to, and then we're going to think about times based on that. So I'm going to do a rundown. I went through maybe the most popular things that I typically hear from what people do. Like a lot of people, market from software brand to business owner to corporation, right? So I'm going to make a rundown of four of the main types of business models and how you should think about it when you're putting out your content. So let's start with software brands. I have so many different ones. So let's start with software brands. So when we think about software brands marketing to their like a B2B or something different, right? Those people, when we think about, and if you're marketing to a software brand, so if you're marketing to a tech company, you also have to think about how they operate. So when you think about how they operate, typically it's like, and I don't know how many of my other my 80s and 90s, starting to understand business and work in the business world in the 90s. And it probably still goes on in some companies where they had, you enter the office building. I grew up, I grew up in New York. So that's where they always say, if you can't make it in New York, you can't make it anywhere, right? If you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere. So for us, it's going into office buildings and, those high rises. And when you get out of the elevator on certain floors, you see like a lot of Wall Street journals just on the side, either on the side of the elevator. That was most of the time because people didn't want to have to go to all the different offices. So you see a whole bunch of the Wall Street journals for different people within that floor, just on the side of the elevator. So you kind of think about it that way, think about it, and we know LinkedIn, and you've seen the evolution of LinkedIn. LinkedIn now is pretty much a media company, right? So instead of having to go to Business Insider or get your Wall Street Journal or anything else, you can pretty much just go to LinkedIn on your right panel and look at what the trending news are for the day. It could be for business, it could be for different things, but they make sure that they supply you with the news that you may need. Not too much in the financial market, obviously, but different news. They pull from different news. So let's go back to that. So software and media companies. So you have to think about it. You have to get into the mind of someone who has a media company, get into the mind of someone who runs like a media company, your Good Morning America, right? So they provide the news in the morning, they provide some insight midday, and then they provide insight to the end of the day. So when we think about, and this is just one piece of the puzzle. When we think about the market, right? For some people, they want to see what's going on with the market. They check as soon as they wake up in the morning. They check midday, and then once the market closes, they check at the end of the day. So if you're trying to reach those type of people, I would say just pick those different windows. It doesn't have to be everything, but like I said, I'm doing the experiment for you. So pick different windows of when your people, you may think, like I said, software or media, early morning around 8-ish Eastern, midday, because the market closes, according to Eastern Standard Time, right? So morning, midday, or evening for software or media companies. All right, so when we think about healthcare or higher ed, two big industries right now to do business with, to provide your services to, but very, very busy, very hard to get in touch with, I should say. So when we think about that, we want to think about, especially on the healthcare and higher ed, you can think mid-morning to to early of the day. So maybe like a 10 a.m. mid-morning to maybe a 12 to 1 for healthcare and the higher ed. And then you also can think about 2 o'clock. Think about when people not everyone gets breaks like that at a specific time, but think about when people may be on a break and then they just scroll. Obviously, your job is to make sure that they stop the scroll and then they pay attention to you. So that's healthcare and higher ed. Then we think about B2b business. So B2b business is pretty much how you would think about the same thing with, that Wall Street Journal. Either figure out when they wake up in the morning too, right? Because some people will get up at 6 a.m. Some people get up as early as 4 a.m. or 5 a.m. to work out and to process for the day. They may get into the office by 6:30 a.m. to make sure that there's no one else distracting them when they have projects to do. So when do they pick up their paper? When do they go to look at the news? So think about earlier in the morning, or you're going to think about sometime later in the evening. So either before they get to work, or just as they're sitting down at their desk consuming news and figuring out what's going on, to sometime after work. Okay, so think about that for the B2B market. And then we have B2C. For me, I never typically share content on weekends, but if you are marketing to someone in the B2C market, weekends might be good for you. So just for you, I'm going to go ahead and do an experiment for the weekends too. Okay. So those are the things you need to start to think about. For those who are just joining, I went over the ideal posting times depending on what you do. What I'm going to do over the next 30 days, I am going to do an experiment. So I'm going to go live Wednesdays and Thursdays every single week at different times. At the very end, I'm going to come back with the data. So you get to determine, but don't forget, you get to determine this based on who you're marketing to.